Everyone's been talking about this crappy Odyssey remake. Seems to me there are some really brutal takes out there based on what? Mere fragments, if you will. Trailers. But I checked it out myself, and I can confirm it's pretty dire. So in this video I'm going to join the pile-in and hate on the Odysseia by Livius Andronicus. Welcome to Ancient Classics. The Odysseia is the earliest attested Latin epic, a translation or adaptation of Homer's Odyssey. It's usually dated to the mid or late 3rd century BCE and ascribed to a certain Livius Andronicus, a former slave and a native Greek speaker. Since we only have a few fragments of it today, forming a critical view on the poem would be like taking a view on Nolan's movie on the basis of the trailers alone. But our ancient pals had read the whole thing, and they were pretty scathing. The famous historian Livy was pretty scornful of his near namesake's poetry, albeit here he's referring to a different poem, a hymn to Juno. At the time, the song might have seemed praiseworthy to those who didn't know any better, but if it were performed today, we'd find it cringe as fuck. Those are Livy's actual words. The poet Horace, who as a boy was literally beaten into reading this kind of stuff, wrote, "I don't personally think that the poems of Livius should be destroyed, but it surprises me that they should be considered finished and beautiful, little short of perfect." Cicero himself wrote, "The Latin Odyssey is, as it were, like some work of Daedalus, and the plays of Livius aren't even worth a second reading." Daedalus was the mythical craftsman who designed the Minotaur's labyrinth and who made an actual functional flying suit, albeit that it melted. So you might think that Cicero is giving Livius Andronicus a compliment, but it's a backhanded one, at best. It basically means something old and crusty, albeit with a patina of aged mysticism. When you have such heavy hitters as Horace, Cicero, and Livy, all agreeing that Livius Andronicus is crap, you kind of have to take their word for it. And those takes from the Roman 1st century set the tone for modern views of the epic: archaic, a bit clunky, crude, and crusty. But romanticizing apologists might tend to think of Livius Andronicus as some archaic figure from the mists of time, and sometimes it gets a free pass for it. A bit like, I guess, how some metal guitarist might look back to Bill Haley and the Comets and go, "It's a bit shit, but hey, those guys didn't know any better, and without them we wouldn't have Van Halen, Nuno, Petrucci, or whoever." Until, that is, one recalls that those early rock and rollers were contemporaries or preceded by Wes, Django, and Charlie Christian, real shredders who would later go on to inspire metal guitarists, far more so than the early rock and roll twangers. You see, to me, Livius Andronicus doesn't deserve any patronizing indulgence. He wasn't writing in some lost prehistoric, pre-literary world. Just a few hundred miles across the sea in Alexandria, some of the most hardcore, sophisticated, and clever poets were taking the same source material as Livius and taking it in radical new, fresh directions. Indeed, those Alexandrians directly inspired Livius Andronicus's literary descendants, causing them to up Latin poetry's game and giving rise to the likes of Catullus, Virgil, and those guys. So, why was Livius Andronicus so crap? Maybe he was trying too hard to make his translations sound ancient, because to him, a native Greek speaker, that's how the Odyssey would have sounded. A bit like in a modern fantasy, you might have all these knights in armor going around saying thou and thee. Done as a joke, it's kind of funny, but when writers do it with a straight face in an effort to sound grand and old, it's just lame. The fact of the matter is, in any era, there are always going to be hacks and incompetents, even when their contemporaries create works of the highest order. And it's quite possibly the case that Livius was just a third-rate hack who just happened to end up being the guy to write the first Latin epic. Now, this is a shorter, snarkier version of a more considered and even-handed video that I'm partway through making. If you'd like to explore with me some of the more technical aspects of Livius's shit remake, check out the longer video, which I'll link here when done. Postscript: I was trolling with the Nolan references earlier. As for my actual views on Nolan's Odyssey, let's just wait till we've seen the movie before laying into it, shall we? I usually fall into the anti-woke camp, but some of the comments coming from the usual suspects from that side are just embarrassing. All I'll say for now is, first, I think the image of Zendaya as Athene and Matt Damon as Odysseus on the shore, it's pretty epic. And second, Travis Scott as Demodocus. Hey, I don't know any of Travis Scott's work, but epic and hip-hop, well, that tracks for me. Nolan's comment that he wanted to nod towards the idea that the story has been handed down as oral poetry, which is analogous to rap, is a fair comment. And I find some of the pushback on that rather embarrassingly clueless and ill-informed. And incidentally, I've been saying since about 1995 that Homer equals jazz, but maybe I'll come back to that another time. Meantime, like and subscribe, and we'll be back with more Odyssey-inspired takes soon.